Welcome to the Oppo Live Beyond series, where we're looking at the stories and lives of ordinary South Africans who have turned a challenge into an opportunity. My name is Kojo Bafwa, and I've had many titles over the years, but at heart, I'm a storyteller and a writer. We're wrapping up our Youth Month with a focus on future-proofing your career. With the rising youth unemployment rate in the country, as well as a career landscape that is constantly changing, how do young South Africans prepare for an uncertain future? So to help us explore this, I'm joined by Zanyiwe Ntatisi Asari, CEO of Digitally Legal, as well as Head of Marketing at Oppo, Avashni Mudli. Welcome, ladies.
Thank you for having us.
So the first question, and it's a hard question, how has technology and the exponential advancements of technology impacted directly on your industries? We'll start with you.
Lucky number one. Look, that's a multifaceted question, right? And I'll pick one way of answering. So by profession, I am an ICT lawyer, cyber security and data protection. So already you can see there's a big ICT element there. But what I actually do on a day-to-day is I run an ICT and digital laws and training company. And if I think about how we've infused technology to give, some of our corporate client services, I don't believe we would have been competitive enough to go against people who were giving traditional, let's say, legal services or traditional consultancy services. So technology has really allowed us to have that half gap in and to be the new kids on the block and say, look, this is what we're doing. We're doing it in a fresh way and we're doing it in a cheaper way. Yeah.
Because there's two parts to it, right? There's the operational in terms of how it helps you do kind of your work better or more efficiently and more effectively. And then there's the part of it that's actually part of your work, which is an interesting balance. And with you, Avashni, it feels a lot more traditional in terms of, it's a technology company.
Absolutely. If we look at everything we do involves technology. From the smartphones to IoT products to the tablets that we produce. Everyone needs every one of these essential tools to function in their work capacity. So for us, it's important to create that platforms and enhanced tools to help people grow.
But so how does it manifest in your actual work? Because you're providing the product and the technology to enhance, for example, how I work. But at the same time, like with Zanyiwe, there's the operational aspect and then there's the product. And the product happens to be technology related, but there's also kind of, as a head of marketing, the things that you do and the tasks that you have, how technology then kind of smooths that process.
I think for me, and it's always been from my previous career as a journalist, is phoning and following up with people. And I think my phone is now my lifeline, because I think when you're a journalist, it was called your black book, your contact list, and now everything's just on a device. So you just obviously go call, text, message. The ways of communication is so much easier now, and basically my phone functions as a laptop to me, because you can drop an email, you can text someone, you can literally do a presentation on your phone these days. So for me, it's everything. It's a business tool for me, and I can function with just using my phone. So days would go when don't have access, when you're traveling, to your laptops and opening your laptops and stuff like that. But just having your device, you actually don't need your laptop. So everything's on your device. And now, as the world has changed and as we travel and as we do things, you don't need big flashy things now. You need mobile devices that are mobile and that you can carry and that you can go anywhere.
What do you feel the difference would be with your decision making around, for example, career today versus, when you were starting? Because when you're starting your careers, we didn't have a lot of this technology there. Whereas now, the youth are having to make decisions around careers in a world that feels like it's constantly changing. And, it's like quicksand. It's like operating on quicksand, where what a lawyer is, what an advocate is, what a marketeer is, the skills that are required, and it's no more just that degree that you're going to go and do.
Look, I'm a 90s baby, and that's like that's not even young anymore, right? Because we've got like the youngins coming in and doing their thing. But so, for instance, if I go back into like primary school, high school, yes, there were encyclopedias, but we actually went onto Google to like do our assignments. And I think you said something quite important about using your phone. So there's the evolution of the personal computer, and now we've got this cell phone, this personal computer that's in this little tiny package. And if I look at even just some of the things that we do, like I actually think we use our cell phones more than we use the laptops. And 3 years later, everyone's doing everything that I thought they would be doing on their phone, right? From actually like inputting what we've been doing, following up, having access to the VoIP-based call center that we run. So there's just this massive like shift from what we thought we would need to what we actually need. Which really makes starting a business more accessible if you really break down what you genuinely need. Yeah.
And it's interesting because we're been coming out of a period with the pandemic that actually forced us to fast track some of this thinking, right? Because now most call centers for institutions, they were sitting at home. Have you seen that in terms of the business of Oppo? In terms of the industry and the sector, where because people are starting to understand that actually, yes, I can mainly do it on my phone. I don't have to depend on greater hardware to do it. What are the trends that you've been seeing within the business?
I think from our side, we can see there's a greater need for more business orientated devices, and more people, whether it's from a career perspective that are building up their businesses, require devices that they can run their businesses off. So whether it's an entrepreneur who's just starting off, who's creating their social media platforms on a device, or it's using it as a payment platform as well. So anyone can actually start their business just by using their phone. So we've seen a huge trend away from like small businesses, especially from getting laptops.
I like both of your perspectives on. So I believe that the technological advancements are great, and it has immense potential benefit for the country and the continent specifically. So I look at it from that perspective. But in some instances, it's let's call it the natural or the soft skills, right? So if I'm starting a business, there's technology available to me to be able to, like start it on a smartphone, et cetera. But if I don't have an understanding of some of the things I have to think about in starting a business, then the technology is actually slightly wasted on me. So if I don't have, I was reading something recently where they talked about the level of basic literacy in South Africa, where it's like over 70% of South African children, say in grade 4, can't read for meaning. And so if we're sitting with that situation, then it becomes very hard for that same child now to be older and really take advantage of the technology and learn digital skills. So I think I'll start with you, Avashni. I know that you are involved in certain projects that are looking at that, but how important is that for yourselves as an organization?
We early on identified maths and science as critical subjects, especially in South Africa, where you see less than like 40% of kids actually passing at times. So it was important for us to focus on maths and science. And also the career path for maths and science students is much wider than it was previously. So we partnered with an organization called Ornico, and they do maths literacy and help enhance mathematics skills. So we donated devices to the organization, and they help kids after school improve their timetable skills, from a time limit, from helping them, and all this can be done on a device. So for us, it was important to also expose them, but not only be that provider from a device perspective, because we believe like encouraging them and giving them the skills later in life will help them, because by using your smart device, as I said, you can start your own business, because not every one of these kids will be able to go have a tertiary education. So what other skills can we provide to help them? For example, we also started the Reno Academy with the School of Photography in Cape Town. That was basically, and we sponsored a whole bunch of scholarships to kids, basically for these kids who had a passion for photography and wanted to become a photographer just by using your device. So they went through a course with our teachers. We partnered with a few photographers, and they went through this course, an online course, and they received certificates for this, because they can now start up their business as a photographer, maybe do weddings or small parties. But this was different areas that we identified of how we as a technology company can help drive career paths for students.
I mean, what I liked about the photography one, it's also teaching them how to be professionals in that space. So it's not just how do I take pictures and how do I edit pictures, but how do I run a small photography business? Like, how do I charge? Being professional, all of those factors, which is what really stood out for me in terms of that specific partnership.
And I think this is something that we need to address as Africa, but I think globally as well. So when we speak about ICT and we speak about technology, we typically just look at the skills from utilizing the hardware. As an ICT lawyer, it would be remiss of me to not speak about the data protection, cybersecurity, and information processing element of it. So looking at the regulatory frameworks that come with using technology. So for instance, let's say you are a data processing intensive company. You've got massive databases, you've got massive clients, and each day you're tapping into this. With all of these new regulations that have come up, you can't speak about digital skills without also empowering your staff on how to ensure that you're protecting this data. And also outside of just the empowering part, empowering from a safety perspective, but how are you as a company also using this data to ensure that you are maximizing on what you have and maximizing on what you can get out of the relationship with your clients. So that's the first one, to say digital skills are really beyond just using the hardware. In South Africa, I've actually found that it's easier to hire people who can use computers with the really basic stuff. So we recently started our office in Lusaka, Zambia, and we wanted to replicate some of the offerings that we have here in South Africa. And it is a smaller population, so it's harder to find people. It's not that people are not skilled, but it was hard. So what we started doing is we started reaching out to people who could assist in the skills deficit, and to ensure that we get people to, really be the best version of themselves when it comes to technology. It's really hard to find people who are not in employment who can use computers. So it's not that people can't, it's the ones that can happen to find themselves in jobs, and the ones that can't are just found wanting. So there is something to talk about around that, to ask ourselves at school level, should computer application technology be something that is an elective, should not be something that everybody does all the way through until you finish your high school. Because let's face it, if you cannot use a computer at least adequately, what are you going to be doing in this really cyber-based world?
So it's essentially where you start that process, where you start that journey. I mean, so I have two children who are, well, not as young as they used to be, but their schools, my daughter started the basics of coding as a 5-year-old. So being taught the other skills, but this is now an additional skill. So it's also not a separate thing. I come from a generation where it was, before the smartphone, after the smartphone. I remember distinctly working with a landline, right? And the digital side was always an add-on. Whereas now it's operating where it's another component. So if I want to study law, that's just a component of my curriculum.
And that's needed, right? We're not having honest discussions about what is needed. And even with coding, I think there's this evolution of like, okay, fine, you can be a coder, but you don't have to be a coder to work in a tech company. Now people are creating no-code based, platforms and programs. So it's constantly evolving, but you'll never lose from investing and understanding. You'll never lose from being able to contribute to the ecosystem. You'll never lose. And that's where we need to start asking ourselves those questions to say, okay, whether it's law, whether it's teaching, whether it's nursing, whatever it is, where do we also ensure that we're empowering young Africans, young South Africans, let's even take it to like where I come from, Bloemfontein. How do we say, okay, we're going to make sure that all the kids in Bloem understand how to use, even at a very basic level, a computer? And those are the discussions that we need to have. And I think what you said was quite important. You said, you guys are doing, you're collaborating with people that are in education, you're collaborating with people who are working with other, technology platforms. Now, how do we ensure that that's actually spread out? How do people get to, know that information? I know I'm going on, but I have to say one last thing. So I am the chairperson of the South African Internet Governance Forum, which is a UN body. So I'm the chairperson of the South African chapter. And a lot of what we actually do is that, trying to connect people to, if you have the resources, connect the unconnected. If you have the resources, give people the knowledge to even want to get connected, right? To speak about access, to advocate for access, to speak up to governments, to say, guys, what are you doing, right? Because there's a person who's sitting in Kwaklo who's just like not bothered, not because they don't care, not because they're not interested, because they're just not acting in accordance to anything because there's nothing to know. No one's giving them the information and showing them how life-changing technology is.
In the early days, it's like we downloaded like every app that came out. We'd download every single app, and you have these screens with just 101 apps. And I think in a weird way, we're getting mature with it. So I know that even if I get a new device, I know the things that I use. This is like my little my little basket of apps that I carry around with me that cover all my needs.
We speak now, it's two different things, but it's because technology, as a lawyer, I was just like a random lawyer chick. And now I'm a tech girl, tech woman. And it's because of technology, it's because of the possibilities that are out there. So for a young person, just sit down, use YouTube for something else other than just like streaming music and fun stuff. Learn something. Like what you said, you can literally learn things. You could summarize or, capture what people learn in 4 years in a year if you take yourself seriously. That's what technology does.
I think it's brilliant in terms of closing. Avashni?
I think for me, technology is life-changing, but also if I look at what's happening out there and how we need to grow the unemployment and create more jobs, I think it also talks back to both technology and hard work. And I think that's something that stemmed many years ago with the older generation, where hard work was something. And I think that's something that needs to come back as well. And also the motivation from a country perspective. How do we make the country better? What are you contributing? Because we all are complaining and people are always unhappy with what's happening, but how are you impacting? What are you doing from yourself to help make a positive change? And for me, that's important, is how do you make a positive change? Even if you do one small thing one day, I'm sure it's going to make a bigger impact. And for me, that's how you contribute to making the country better.
Cool. Thank you both very much.
Thank you. I actually want to clap to that. That's brilliant. You're right.
So, Zanyiwe, Avashni, thank you both very much. Like, I really enjoyed the conversation. I really enjoyed your insights. And I think the beauty of a series like this is the dialogue. It's not a single you presenting a particular idea. And as has happened, which is what often happens, is we feed off each other. And I'm walking away with some insights that I'm going to sit in my own little corner and go, okay, this is how I change. This is how I change and I impact on my little sphere, my little piece of the earth. So thank you both very, very much. And that's it for episode 3 of Live Beyond with Oppo. Thank you to our amazing guests for their time, and thank you to Oppo for creating a platform to connect and inspire. Follow Oppo on Twitter and Facebook for sneak peeks and giveaways. Thank you for watching.